So the first concept we are going to learn is something about the SSIS architecture. Very important to learn, and whatever you see on the slides, some of the information what I show you on my system, something may be different. Okay, so I strongly suggest you to take some background notes or some to listen to this LMS audio, because I'm going to show you something related to the system services and how the MSBI and SSIS works on the overall architecture. Okay, this is the very rough flow of SSIS architecture. So we have some few architecture diagrams given by Microsoft, and that actually when you look at the architecture, the overall thing you should understand is how SSIS works, from where it gets installed, where it is sitting in your server, and what are the services used to make that software up and running. So this becomes the architecture, and once you develop the packages in SSIS, when you execute that and how the runtime engine internally works, that's also very important. Okay, so what we have is, so this is the overall architecture of SSIS. So very important thing. So if you look at the yellow portion present here, so you can see the integration services runtime present here. Okay, so the highlighted yellow portion, whatever you screen. So usually yesterday we saw some SSIS package creating. So there we have taken one package and we have taken one data flow task, and we were creating the workflow in the control flow, right? So this is actually the workflow which we create in the SSIS, and data flow task is part of the SSIS control flow. Right? So usually, again I repeat, control flow is used to generate the workflow, and data flow is used to migrate the data from one place to other place. So this SSIS is totally integrated in Visual Studio. So Visual Studio is a software used to develop the .NET related applications, but the same Visual Studio is tightly integrated to the concept of MSBI, and we use the same software to develop the SSIS. Okay, so there is one important service up and running all the time. So if you execute SSIS package, so it executes internally in an engine inside. So to keep that engine up and running, there is one service always up and running in your server which helps you to execute your packages. So we will see what is this service which is up and running all the time, and this is the object model. So what do you mean by object model? So if some people are already from the programming industry, so what do you mean by object model? So SSIS is divided into, when you look at the overall architecture of SSIS, it is following the class and object model. Okay, class, methods and object model. So the MSBI SSIS is designed internally using the C# by Microsoft. So using the C# program, MSBI is developed. So they use the concept of classes, methods and objects. So it's if in the future you will see some examples where we use the objects also to reference, so that it is reusable and encapsulated. Okay, so this is the high level view of the SSIS. But in SSIS, when you are performing ETL operation, so when I say ETL operation, you have extract, transform and load. Okay, so if you see on the left side, so you have few portions where you have the data sources, log providers and all those things. So whenever you have whenever you have these data sources, right, so it means that it can be anything, Oracle, SAP, DB to MySQL, it can be anything. By default the ETL should have this. At the same time, when the SSIS package is running, it should provide some logging information. So if the SSIS package is running for 1 hour, let us say, so there should be some logging information present, what happened at every step of the package, so that when you come, if the package is running in the night, automatically scheduled, when you come in the next day morning, you at least know that what is happening on the server, and you can go through the different logs. And there are different tasks available in SSIS, but if some tasks are not available, and if something has to be developed, that can be developed using the .NET code, and that you can use as a custom task. Okay, so few organizations will do this particular custom task. unless it is very important for your organization to do this custom task, or the requirement is very specific to them, then they go for the custom task, otherwise don't. Okay. And what happens is, once you have the SSIS, as I told you, you have that particular SSIS package will be having an extension called .dtsx. Okay. So .dtsx is nothing but data transformation services extension file. Okay. So the internally this file will have a XML created in. I will show you how it works. Okay. And there is a system database called MSDB. So when if there are few people who already knows the SQL Server, there are few databases which will be created by the system. So one is STEM database, master database, MSDB database, and there is some other data, which are 4 databases which are created. So MSDB database is used for 2 purposes. One is for the SQL agent job purposes, and the second is for the SSIS purpose. Okay, so once you develop the SSIS package, you can deploy in MSDB database. Okay, and there are some concepts called connection managers and event handlers. As I told you, event handlers are nothing but exception handling, and connection managers are nothing but it is something like you can manage the connections of your servers and databases. If you are from a programming background, so it is something like app.config or web.config, which you use in the programming language, where you can change your connection strings automatically. Okay, and at the same time, I showed you in the SSIS designer yesterday, and it will have some wizards, and it can have some command line utilities where you can call the BCP bulk copy program and all those things. Okay, so the important concept, which is a data flow task, which is used for migrating the data from one place to the other place. So what happens is, it also follows the object model, and it will have a source, and it will actually do the ETL job. So what is a ETL job? Extract, transform and load. Although SSIS is a ETL tool, the main ETL process is done by the data flow task. So extract, transform and load. So if you see, extract from the sources, do the transformation and load into the destination. Again, example, if yesterday we picked a currency data from a database called AdventureWorks, that becomes our source. But we did not do any transformation, but we loaded into the destination called a flat file or a text file. So the transformation, what are the transformations we can do? Example, we are pulling the currency data, right? So the currency data, it is always showing you maybe in the local currency, but there is a requirement that no, the output file should not have the local currency values, but the output file should have the standard USD value. So if this is the case, then we can do something, those kind of transformation in, those kind of changes in the transformation. Or if someone says that in the input file, I have total amount and quantity. I have a sale, okay, I have a sale invoice transaction, and I have a total amount column and a quantity column. Okay, and what I need is, I want the, okay, example, I have 2 columns, one is sales amount column and quantity column. What I want is, I want the total amount. So what is total amount? Total amount is nothing but sales amount into quantity becomes the total amount. So those kind of transformations you can do in the transformations part. Very important slide. So please concentrate on this. Okay, and this is the overall architecture of SSIS. And if I just come back, from this slide, right? Okay. If I just go beyond this slide, so what I'll do is, I'll just go to my system. So Microsoft SQL Server 2014. So there are few things related to the SSIS. One is SQL Server 2014 import and export wizard, 32-bit mode and 64-bit mode. So if you don't want to create SSIS package, but you want to just import the data from somewhere, and if you want to load it somewhere else, if you want to just do the ETL operation, very basic ETL operation, then you can use this import export wizard. Okay, and always you will use the SQL Server Data Tools Visual Studio 2013 for developing the SSIS packages in SSIS 2014. Okay, and if I come down, and there is integration services here. Okay, so there are few things available in integration services. Okay, so there is a deployment wizard we have, where we use it for the deployment purposes. and we have a data profile viewer. So where we use this for profiling the data. Actually, this comes in the concept of data quality services, which is beyond this topic. Okay, and we have some utility called execute package utility. Very important topic. Execute package utility is something, right? Once you have the SSIS package ready from the development environment, in the production or in the development environment, you can use the execute package utility to run the SSIS packages. And you have a project conversion wizard. Example, some of your packages developed in SQL Server 2005 or 2008 or 2008 R2 or 2012. What your organization wants is you want to migrate your SSIS packages from previous version to this version. Then you can use the project conversion wizard. Okay, these are the few things available here, but I'm just jumping back to the configuration tools. Okay, so in the configuration tools, usually you have a SQL Server 2014 configuration manager, where it will give the information about the different services running for SSIS, SSIS and SSRS. Okay, so what I did is I just open this configuration manager. Very important thing. And one more thing is, when you are practicing SSIS, okay, when you are practicing SSIS or SSIS or RS, if you are not able to connect to a database, or if your database is down, or if your SSIS package is not running properly, please check this particular portion. Very important. Just go to here, SQL Server 2014 configuration manager, configuration tools, SQL Server 2014 configuration manager, and this will open. So what it will show is, it will show all the services which are used to make the MSBI and SQL Server up and running. I've opened the latest version, SQL Server 2014, in the configuration manager. So what it will do is, it will show the 2014 configuration service. It will show the 2014 services, and also it will show the previous version services. So I have some 2012 service, 2012 installation also in my system. I have 2008 installation also. I have 2005 installation also. So that's why you see there are a lot of services. But in real time, if you talk about 2014, it's not everything. So whatever you are seeing with 2014 is related to 2014. Example, let us take first SQL Server. SQL Server is having, I gave the instance name as 2014, right? So when you do the installation, your name may be different. For identification purpose, I have given is the name as a 2014. So first thing, let us go to SQL Server. SQL Server 2014, this is the service we have, and this is automatic, but this is stopped due to some reason. And if you are using 2014 as a database to do some things, and if this is stopped, you will not be able to work on that. So what you should do is, you should right click and start this service. Only then you can work on 2014 SQL Server database. Okay. Okay. So let us come to integration services. Integration services, there are different versions here, 10, 11, 12. 10 is for 2008. Okay. This service is for 2005, which is 9.0 version. And 10.0 version is for 2008, and 11.0 version is for 2012, and this version, this particular service is for 2014. So we are learning 2014 here. So what happens is, you should concentrate on SQL Server Integration Services 12.0 SSIS service, right? So make sure that that is up and running all the time, and if that is not up and running, so what you should do is, you should start it. Example, if I see my integration services is stopped, right? So what I'll do is, I'll start this. Okay. So this is very important, and make sure your integration service is started to develop the SSIS packages, and once it is deployed, right, this integration services will help make it up and running. So previously, as you can see, previously it was in the stop mode. Currently it is running, and you can set the start mode as automatic or manual. When you double click this, there is a separate window which will be coming for the services, where you can set whether the type of thing should be a manual or auto. If you go to service, you can set whether it is a manual option or a automatic option. Okay, so I just made to SQL Server integration up and running. At the same time, you will have something for analysis services, which is SSIS. and at the same time you will have something called reporting services, which is SSRS. So all the three things are up and running for me. So this is important area where you should do the things. So these are the services which is keeping the MSBI up and running in the server. Hope you have understood this topic, and make sure that once you install these things, all these things are up and running. And if something is not working, just go there, make sure it is in automatic mode when the computer starts up, and you start the service manually if it is not. Okay, so this is the very high level concept what I told you, which happens on server level. Okay, if you people don't understand anything out of it, just raise your question in the chat window. So after a logical break, we will read out the questions and answer your queries. As I have explained to you earlier, yesterday we have created a package, right? We're using the SSIS designer. So in the SSIS designer, we created a package with the import export. So that this is what I'm showing on the screen is the SSIS designer. I just showed you there is a runtime engine. There is a runtime engine which is used to run the SSIS package at the time of runtime. So what is that runtime engine? SQL Server Integration Services 12.0. This is the service which will have an engine in it which will make the SSIS package up and running. Okay. Okay. So before going here, so this is very, again we are going deep here. So what I'll do is, like, I'll just give a very high level overview of these things, and what I'll do is I'll take up some questions. Okay, I'll give a very high level overview. I'll take up some questions, and what I'll do is I'll show you the practical scenario of some of the topics, okay, or some of the things, and we will come back here and to see if we know if we have understood the concept. Okay, so this is not a straightforward concept. What we do is we go through theory, go to the practical, come back to theory, and make sure the things are intact. Okay. So basically in the SSIS, what you saw yesterday is you have some control flow items, you have the data flow items, but there are logically, if you talk about that, there are different tasks where Microsoft has split into the different naming conventions. Okay, so the first concept what you have is the integration service task. So what do you mean by integration service task? Whatever is used in the concept of integration of the data are called integration service tasks. So there is one task called data flow task. I told you, right? Data flow task is also called as a DFT. Very important, when you go to the interview, they say it is a DFT, not data flow task. Or when you're talking in real time, they say it's DFT. DFT is nothing but data flow task. So data flow task is used to migrate the data from one place to the other place. The exact ETL operation happens here. Okay. So there are some data preparation tasks. So data preparation tasks, what do you mean by data preparation tasks? Example, there are few files available in the FTP server. What you want to do is you want to download the things from FTP server, and you want to put it in a local server. And once you have it in the local server, you want to upload that information into the database. So those kind of copying files or downloading of the files, or using some data for using some profile data for cleansing, these type of concepts are called as a data preparation task. At this moment, don't worry too much about these tasks. What is important is how SSIS works and what are the tasks available in this, and based on the situation how you can use them is very important. So we do that in the lab example, we do that in the class example, what I will show you on the screen. But this is a theoretical concept, just keep this in mind, and we go there, we learn the concept, and we come back here to see if you have understood this. Okay, so no need to worry on that. And there are some workflow tasks. So workflow tasks are something that it will be used in the workflow. As I said, the control flow is mainly used for the workflow. Example, you have a SSIS package and you want to run some other SSIS package. That is called as a workflow task. Or in your SSIS package, you want to call a process to unzip a file or zip a file. Usually we use WinZip or WinRAR to unzip or zip the file, right? So if you are calling from SSIS package to zip a notepad or you want to zip a file or unzip a file, we use some process task, okay, or to send some email messages or some read some Windows related information or to create some event watchers. These kind of things are called workflow tasks. And there are few tasks which are related to the SQL Server. Example, what are the tasks? Like it can back up a database, or it can create, insert and delete and modify the SQL Server objects and data. So we have very important task called execute SQL task. Very, very useful, and it is almost used at least 10% of the total project in the real time. And we have few scripting tasks. Sometimes like something is not possible to use directly in SSIS. So what is not possible? Example, if you want to write some custom scripting to call something. Example, you have a executable task where you want to call that process, but once you call that, what you want to do is you want to modify some of your variables, or you want to modify some of your package tasks in such a way that it is dynamic. So there are few scenarios I'll show you. In those scenarios, you have to use some scripting task which is available both in VB.NET and CS.NET. But this is very, very rarely used in organizations. If something is not possible in SSIS by default, then we do by scripting. Okay. So what I'll do is, like, before jumping into the second topic, what I'll do is I'll go through the SSIS. Okay. Because if I give too much of information at a point of time, it's very easy to forget, right? So I told you some of the tasks, but what I'll do is I'll compare this against the SSIS design. Okay. So this is the SSIS designer which we have created yesterday. So what we'll do is, so we'll start a new project. Yesterday we have created a project called m1_edureka_import export. What we'll do is we'll create a new project, and whenever you do it on a local computer, make sure you run this as administrator. I'm starting SQL Server data tools and I'm running it as administrator. Just click yes. So what it will do is it will open a new instance of instance of Visual Studio, right? So let's wait for new instance of Visual Studio to appear. So this is the new instance of Visual Studio. So what I'll do is I'll create a new project which is related for the module 2. As I told you, you can give the naming of the project as module 2, and I'll put this as module 2_Edureka_ SSIS right. So this is my project name, and at the same time I just wanted to put the solution name also into the same file, and just click OK. If someone has not installed the software, please install the software as soon as possible and try to create some of the things, because whenever you learn the new concepts, whenever you learn the new software, the most important thing is you will understand the concept. You will know the high level concept thing of the concept. But what happens is, when 3 classes, 4 classes, 5 classes, 6 classes happens, the information will be overloaded. And once the information is overloaded, you will not be able to recall what happened in the previous classes. So what you should do is, whenever you are attending these type of courses, my personal suggestion from my experience, so you better install all the softwares and start doing at least something. At least you know that how to create a new project, what do you mean by control flow, actually what happens in a data flow. So these type of things at least you should do. Okay, so I'm just closing this one. What I'll do is there is a auto hide option here. I'll just close the properties because I don't need it right now. Okay, so I have a SSIS package here. I can rename it by right clicking and rename. So what I'll do is I'll just give you the architecture overview. So I'll just renaming this as a architecture.dtss, or I can rename this as SSIS_architecture. So I have told you some few concepts about the control flow item, right? So let us go to the PPT. So I've talked to you about the data flow task, right? So where is data flow task here? Currently I'm in the SSIS designer. So on the left side you have the toolbox, and the right side you have the project related information, and you have a properties button here. Okay, and in the down and in the bottom you have connection manager section. Okay, and you have few tabs here. One is control flow, which is nothing but the flow chart of the package. Data flow, which is used for ETL purpose. You have parameters where you can dynamically create the things. You have event handlers where you can do the exception handling. Okay, something like try catch in the programming languages. And you have package explorer. As I told you yesterday, this is something like the Windows Explorer. Okay, you can explore the package. So currently I'm in the control flow section. So on the left side I have my few of the tasks. So there are two favorite topics. So Microsoft has already categorized these as favorites. So in my real-time experience from the real-time MSBI SSIS projects, most of the times these two tasks are used. Very, very important task, and it's very important you know in and out of it. You should go in knowing in and out of it. That's why Microsoft is given as a favorite task. So these are used in most of the times in the SSIS package. So what I'll do is at the end of the course, I'll show you some real-time examples of the SSIS packages. I may not run it, but I'll show you how it is used. Okay. As I told you, we have a data flow task. Data flow task is used to do the ETL operation to extract and transform and load. So once you double click the data flow, automatically the tab changes to here. If you are in control flow, when you double click, it will go here, and the list of items will also change here. These are the things. There are some sources which is used for the extract, and these are the transformations, and these are the destinations. ETL concept is available, is shown here, right? And we have some few data preparation tasks. So what are those data preparation tasks? Data preparation tasks, as I told you, to prepare the data, right? To download something from a FTP. So we have a FTP task here. Example, if you want to download something from FTP server or upload something to FTP server, then we use the FTP task. Or we have file system task. File system task is something, right, to copy the file, to move the file, or to cut the file, or to delete the file, or to create the file. These type of concepts can be created from the file system task. Okay. So we have few concepts like workflow tasks. Workflow tasks are nothing but, as I told you, so this is the first group of section, this is second group. The third group is the workflow task, right? Workflow task is something that if you're calling one SSIS package from another SSIS package. So if you are from a programming background, you already know that you can call another web method from one web method, right? Or you can call another class from one class, or you can call another code block from one code block. In the same way, SSIS also has that concept. SSIS, what it has is, you can call a SSIS package from another SSIS package, and that package can be called from some other package. So there is a process to do that, and for that to call SSIS package from other SSIS package, what we do is we use a task called execute package task. We use a task called execute package task, or as I told you, we can use some SSIS task to zip or unzip the file, or to call some exe to perform some action. So the example we have taken is, example, you have WinZip or WinRAR in your computer, you want to unzip or zip a file automatically in the SSIS package, you can use execute process task. So this can execute any kind of process which is in the format of exe. Okay, these are nothing but workflow tasks, right? I told you there is a concept called SQL Server tasks. So SQL Server tasks are nothing but which is related to the purely for the SQL Server related, right? So example, you have some bulk insert. Bulk insert task is purely SQL Server database related. So you just go to the other tasks, and other tasks you have some related to the SQL Server, right? So something like backup database task and all these things. And very important topic, we have execute SQL task, which is used to update, or insert the SQL Server related information. Example, if you want to update a table in SQL Server, so you can use execute SQL task. You can use execute SQL task to update a table in SQL Server. It's not only update, you can do all the SQL operations, right from DDL. What is DDL? Data definition language, create, alter, drop. You can do a DML operation. So what is DML operation? Update, insert, delete, right? Or you can go do a DCL, data control language, grant, revoke, deny, these type of things, right? And you can do any kind of SQL task. Whatever the task you are doing on the SQL Server, you can perform it on the execute SQL task. Very important thing, in control flow, data flow task and execute task are the topics which you will use at least 30 to 40% times in the real time. So even if you go for interview or to upgrade your knowledge, these two things are very important. Whatever I am highlighting here, this particular thing, this is the one, and the second one is this one. Very important. So make sure you understand everything about it. Okay. And we have few containers. Okay. So these topics, whatever we are discussing very high level overview, but we will have class examples and scenarios for that to understand more about it. Okay. So we have some SQL Server Integration Service containers. Okay. So what we can do is like these things, right? These are the integration services tasks. What we can do is we can select everything, right click, and we can actually group them. And what I'll do is I'll put the name as, just for the logical reference, and just double click on that. I can call it as integration services tasks, right? So this is just for the logical reference. So what I'll do is I can just minimize this or just keep it aside. I can just move the whole thing here. Okay, so let's leave it apart. So if you have some formatting issues, what you can do is always you go to the format tab on the tab and just go to the auto layout and diagram. So what it will do is it has automatically created it as a diagram. So SSIS will take care of the format. So these are the integration services tasks. So what I'll do is like I'll go to the next topic, which are the for each loop containers. So if you are already having the knowledge about the software, usually we use the concept of loop. Okay. So what is the concept of loop? To do the same action multiple times, we use the concept of loop. So in the Java and .NET terminology, we have the concept of for each loop also. When you have the list of items or list of enumerators where you want to loop it, then we use the concept of for each loop. But what is for each loop? How it is used in SSIS? For those persons who does not have a programming background, I will tell you. Please don't worry about that. So this explanation is for the people who has a background on that industry. Okay. So we have for each loop container, for loop container, sequence container. So there is a separate section given by Microsoft for this one. These are the very, very important tasks used in real time. Okay. Apart from data flow task and control flow task, containers are the very important tasks which are used in the real time. Example, you have 3 containers. So one is a for loop container. What it will do is it will execute the same set of block multiple times. Example, if you want to run a particular set of block 100 times, then you can use the for loop container. So what is for each loop container? For each loop container is something like, example, you have a folder and you have 100 files in it. Okay, what you want to do is whatever the files available in that folder, take each and every file and load into your system. If the folder has 1000 files, do it for 1000 times. If the folder has 50 times, do it for 50 times. These type of item related or some enumerator related concepts can be done by using a concept called for each loop container. And then we have a concept called sequence container to run the things in a sequential manner. So that is the importance of the sequence container. So when we do the real time, you will know more about it. Okay. So what I'll do is, in the same way, what I'll do is I'll just select everything and right click and group them, and I'll do it as a, and just I'll rename it as, you just come out or come outside of it and click here and double click here, or just press F2 on your computer. Okay, I'll put it as containers and I'll leave it for the format to Microsoft to decide the diagram. So these are the integration services tasks. What it did is it has pushed the containers inside that. So let us bring outside it, and what is auto layout diagram. Okay, it is going on the right side, so that's okay. So the containers are on the right side. So just remember that it is on the right side. And we have the concept of event handlers, right? So where are the event handlers? Event handlers, what is the concept of event handler? Event handler is nothing but it is a temporary data storage where the package or task finishes running, right? Retrieve system information to assess resource availability before the package runs. So it is something like, I already told you, event handlers are the concepts related to the try catch, or it is used to do the exception handling, right? So we have the concept of event handling by default by Microsoft. Okay, but if you want to handle an event manually, then you can handle it through the control flow task also. Example, if some process is failing and what you want to do is you want to send an email to some administrator, then you can use a email task, send email task, right? So if you want to give some information as if you want to give some information to a particular resource that a process is pass or success, so you want to perform a particular task. So those type of tasks are called as the event handler task. By default Microsoft gives that, but if you want to do any customization, you can use some of the tasks from the control flow. Okay, so these are something about the control flow items. Okay, so there is more about that, but what I'll do is, like, next topics we have is something related to the data flow, and we have some deep understanding about the control flow. So what I'll do is, I'm not telling you something about the data flow here. We have, after a few slides, we have the concept of data flow. Okay, what I'll do is, I'll come back here to make you understand about the data flow, and we will continue those topics. So I'm just leaving these data flow topics here, and I'm just going to the control flow. So as I said, like, this topic is, I mean, logically the topic is completed. So what I'll do is, I'll go through the list of questions, okay, in the GoToWebinar, and just see if there are any few questions available. Oh, that's great. So I have one question from Narayanan, a very active participant. During the installation of SQL Server 2014, why do we have to take 32-bit version? Is there any problem if I select 64-bit version? Also, what are the difference between these two? Okay, that's a good question. So what happens is, Microsoft, when they have designed this particular Visual Studio or Microsoft Business Intelligence Development Studio, this actually is written in 32-bit mode. The code was written in 32-bit mode. Okay, so by default, even if your system is a 64-bit system, that internal SSIS engine, which is built in C#, is actually running in the 32-bit mode. Okay, so when you install SQL Server 2014, so by default Microsoft does not give any option. Microsoft will give you the option for 32-bit and 64-bit, right? So before 2014, everything was running in the 32-bit mode. So even if you install 64-bit computer, you used to get a 32-bit version of it. But right now, like, if you can select the 64-bit version based on your computer configuration. Okay. And I have another question from Bhaskar Raju. SSIS architecture is more more explanation. Can you give how the ETL job executions an SSIS engine? What are the main parts in SSIS engine? Can you give me how ETL job? Okay. So this will be the I think if you just hear about the question is something like this. Bhaskar is asking that, can you give me how ETL job executes an SSIS engine? What are the main parts in SSIS engine? Okay, so what happens is, okay, so I already told you that in SSIS architecture, but I'll try to give you some more information about it. So what happens is, whenever you create a SSIS package, there is a service which is a integration service, which is available here. This will actually make sure that SSIS package is running, but internal to that, there is some process in the runtime which is getting executed. So how it is executing and all those things, we have a separate architecture diagram for that. Example on the overall, how can I tell you is, there is from the Microsoft, there is a process called dtutil and dtexec. There are two concepts. So dtutil is nothing but the utility to execute the packages. dtutil is a utility to execute number of packages at the same time. Okay, and there is another thing called dtexec, data transformation executable, which is an executable file, which is an executable command to run a SSIS package. So this will run in the runtime in the CLR, in a common language runtime inside this service. So this is very internal to the service. Okay, so what it does is something like the .NET. What it does is it takes everything, and dtexec will be called internally, and it will internally run and make sure that the buffer is available and it is making use of the resources and all the resources of the system, whatever we have configured it is using. So it will check all those things and internally run it. So this is something inside to that, but more information you can get it from the Microsoft about the runtime engine of SSIS. I'll try to give that slides to Edureka. You can have a look of that. Okay, so one other question is, data flow task is a sequential mode or a parallel mode? This can be parallel mode. Very good question. Whether it is a sequential or parallel, you can design it to be a sequence, but at the same time we can design it to be a parallel also. The data flow task, example, you have 3 or 4 data flow tasks. Okay, you can have them data flow tasks run parallelly, but there is a limitation for that. What is the limitation? It depends on the number of cores in your server. Example, so let me take another notepad. You are running your SSIS package in a 4-core server. Okay, if you are running your SSIS package in a 4-core server, then the maximum number of parallel processing you can do in SSIS is n+2, which is nothing but 4+2. You can have 6 parallel data flow tasks, which is DFT, or anything. It need not be DFT. You can do anything in parallel, but what happens is, depends on the number of cores in the server. If it is a 4-core server, then it is n+2, which is 4+2, which becomes 6. Sometimes, like in my servers, in my projects, we have 8-core servers, right? So if it is 8-core servers, what happens is, it will be 10 parallel. This is a very important interview question also. Okay, so they will ask you how many number of parallel processing, whether the parallel processing technique is available in SSIS, or if it is there, then how many number of parallel processing you can do. The answer is, depends on the number of cores available in the server, and we have to do a +2. Okay. Yeah, so the question is, if it is parallel, do we need to set the configuration? Yes, there is a place where you can set the configuration in SSIS. If you go to the control flow and go to the properties, and you can set the number of parallel processing. I'll show you those deeper things later, right? So the other question is, what is the default core server, normal organizations? Usually if I take my laptop nowadays, it's a dual core processor, right? So the normal laptops or desktops nowadays we are buying are dual core processors. It's very normal. So if you go to any organization, usually it will be a quad core processor. That's a very normal. Okay. Example, some of my servers in my previous company or current company, we had quad core processors, which is 6 parallel things we can run at a time. But nowadays, with the latest configurations and the memory and the other things getting cheaper in the hardware, we are going for octa core. Octa core is nothing but 8-core processor. So, but usually in your laptop nowadays it is a dual core. Otherwise in your organization it will be minimum quad core, or it can go to octa core or hexa core. Yep, dual core is 2 core, right? So the other question we have is, can we execute DFT process and data preparation task in parallel? Yes, you can do. You can do any task in parallel, but the number of parallel things will be depending on the number of cores. Example, if I go to here, I can execute these things in parallel. I can execute these things in parallel because I don't have any connection between them, any sequence between them. I can execute everything as parallel. But what happens is the number of parallel processing is only number of cores plus 2. In this computer, it's a, my laptop is a dual core laptop. So it is only 4 times it can run, right? I'm just seeing if I have missed anything. Okay. Great. Looks like I've answered all the questions. Sometimes if I miss answering any of the questions, right? So my apologies for that. But what you can do is you can copy the same statement, and you can, when I'm talking about the question, you can copy the same thing and you can paste it in the bottom if I'm not taking your topic, so that at least I don't miss your thing, right? So sometimes it's possible due to the many questions, some of the questions may be skipped, right? But what I want is everyone to have the sharing of the knowledge and come up with the questions so that everybody can benefit out of that, right? So these are the few questions raised by the audience. So hope we have the answers for it. But when we do the SSIS related things, I'll try to show you what we do it in the real time. Not only whatever we talk about the slides, it's okay, but at the same time I talk most of the things on the real time basis, where you can actually use that property. Okay. So these are the few things available. These are the few things available in the control flow items. Okay, so Bhaskar was asking one of the questions, right? How can we set the configuration for the parallel processing, right? So what I did is I just go to the control flow, right click and just go to properties, okay? And I have a different properties here. So I have maximum concurrent executables. So I have a property called maximum concurrent executables. It is set to -1 by default. So what does that mean? If you set that -1, it will take the highest parallel processing. What do you mean by highest parallel processing? It depends on the number of cores in your process, number of cores in your server plus 2. So if it is a quad core processor, it will automatically take 6. So you need not set it. Example, if you don't want heavy parallel processing to be done in your server, then you set a number. You set it as a 3 or you set it as a 2. Otherwise, don't set it. Leave it default as -1. It will automatically take care. So this is a property where you have to set.